You're watching the Means Report on WJBF News Channel 6 as we pay tribute to America's veterans and current American servicemen and women. A big day coming up Thursday, but the celebration should last year-round, really, and we're doing that on this Sunday on the Means Report. Brad Means with you, and happy to have you with us. We heard from Mark Alberton in our first segment about his brand new movie coming out that lets us hear from Augusta area veterans, and we have an Augusta area veteran on the set of the Means Report with us right now. We're proud to welcome Frank Neal. Frank Neal retired as a first sergeant from the Army Reserve. He spent 2 years serving this great nation in Vietnam, and first of all, welcome. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
Yes, sir. And I said, I'm going to call you Sergeant Neal. He said, no, don't do that. Just call me Frank. Everybody else does. I'll go with Mr. Neal probably. But I do want to thank you for your service to this country. And I do want to get you to tell people what you're doing now. Before we go back, tell them what you're doing now. You're representing the VFW. You're a service officer. What's that mean?
Well, basically what I do is I assist family members and veterans that are seeking disability assistance from the Veterans Administration, giving advice on who to see, points of contacts, and things of that nature.
You're busy, aren't you?
Pretty busy, yes, sir.
What is the primary, these disabilities or these needs, are they related to their time in the service, or is it just old age, or both?
Both, but mostly PTSD,
right.
Prostate cancer from Agent Orange, and those types of medical needs that most of them have, disabilities.
When you're there to help them, how easy is it for them to navigate the system and get help?
Well, it's easy to navigate it to a certain point, but once you reach the bureaucracy, I guess you'd say, it gets pretty difficult, and it's time consuming. Sometimes it takes years before somebody gets a claim in and has it validated and starts receiving disability compensation for it.
Do you deal with people of all ages?
We do, yeah. All service members. Matter of fact, we've had some Iraqi soldiers that come in and ask for assistance, and we aid those people also.
Soldiers who've served in Iraq, or Iraqi soldiers?
Soldiers that have served in Iraq.
American soldiers who are just coming back from that war, probably going back to wars long gone by.
That's right.
World War II and everything in between.
That's right.
Let me ask you this. What's the mindset of veterans for the most part? Would you say that they feel underappreciated, that they feel appreciated? Do you know, when they're coming to you for assistance, do they feel like this nation still remembers them?
They do. The majority of them feel like that the federal government is not really taking care of them like they should. You know, and that's to be expected. If you're going through some personal situations that some of them are going through, and they feel like they may be getting a run around, but the VA is trying to get that corrected, and I think we're headed in the right direction now.
Tell me what you did in Vietnam. You really, not only were you serving this country, but you took Augusta with you when you went over there with your fellow Augusta soldiers. Tell folks what you did while you were in country.
I did. I was in the Army Reserves, the 319 Transportation Company, which is located here in Augusta, and we were mobilized in May of '68 and went to Vietnam and spent a year in Nam, and we were a resupply. Our mission was resupplying base camps and other military installations in the southeastern portion of Vietnam.
I don't want you to get into specifics, but I'm guessing that you probably had some dangerous times over there. Were there tense, scary moments for you, as there are for a lot of our servicemen and women?
Sure, yeah. We had, we were involved in, as a unit, we were involved in approximately 7 ambushes. And but we're very fortunate that we didn't have anyone hurt or killed in those. I mean, we've had some people hurt, but not killed.
Mr. Alberton and I touched on this in our first segment about how your whole perspective changes when you come back from something like that and then try to readjust to society. How's it like living day to day in this world after what you've been through?
Well, probably for the first 10 to 15 years, we didn't even talk about it.
Right.
And up until recently, when I guess when I got into my late 50s, I started reassociating with other veterans and getting involved in the VFW and programs like that. But early on, it wasn't just something we didn't want to talk about.
Well, you just came back and started your life, I guess.
We did.
What was your real job? What'd you do with yourself?
I was a unit administrator for the Army Reserve program.
So you stayed with the service?
I did. I stayed 29 and a half years with them.
What motivated you to sign up in the first place, or were you drafted?
Well, no, I was probably, I guess you'd say I was a draft dodger.
Yeah.
But I got caught up in the system.
Sure, sure.
But most of the guys were in school. We had some professional people locally, and most of them were in school. A lot of them were married guys that didn't want to be drafted. And in hindsight, 2020, I'd do it all over again. I wouldn't rather serve with anybody else but the guys that I served with.
What is it about service? What is it about? Is it just the concept of being a part of a team that makes you, as you just said, willing to do it all over again? What gives you that feeling and that drive still today?
Well, even today, the group that I was with, the 319th, we meet annually. We have a reunion every year. We have a mini reunion, what we call a mini reunion locally, and then once every 3 to 5 years, we'll have a large union. And we had recently we had some guys from. They had a guy from Australia to come that served with us. He was in the Australian Army and attached to us while we were there, and he came and
he came to the reunion.
Came to the reunion and spent a couple of weeks with us.
What do you see when you look out at young people today, Mr. Neal, and you think about the future of this country, especially as it relates to service? Your thoughts on what you're seeing out there?
Well, I've come in contact with a lot of young soldiers, men and women, who are serving in armed forces today, and the overall feeling I get is that they're proud to serve, that they're willing to serve.
What about people who aren't signed up? Do you think younger folks have a concept of patriotism like your generation and your dad's generation did?
Not really.
Yeah, it's different.
Yeah, it's different. I think basically that there's not enough emphasis placed on it in the home, not enough emphasis placed on it in the school system. Where every day you used to pledge allegiance to the flag and so forth, but I'm sure they still do it in the school now, but it's just not the emphasis placed on it like it was at one time.
Do you have children, if you don't mind me asking?
I do. I have 2 sons.
Either one of them enlisted, or did they ever go that route?
No, so they were fortunate enough they didn't have to serve.
Let me ask you this. What would you say to parents out there, though, who are concerned about their sons and daughters who are in Iraq or Afghanistan right now, counting the seconds until that deployment is over? You've been in a war-torn country, Vietnam. Any advice you can share with them about how to get through this period?
Well, I don't know what I could say to them. Not ever really having a son or a daughter serving in the service, but personally, I never wrote home about what was taking place. And I'm sure that most of the kids now are doing the same thing. They aren't really conveying to their families what's taking place, and they just have to have faith and hope that everything works out for the best for them.
But for an actual soldier, for a person as you were, when you were transporting supplies over there, your mindset is to keep yourself safe, right?
Exactly.
It's to stay safe. And so I think maybe if a parent could realize that, these children were raised right. They're over there serving their country, and their goal is to come home safely.
That's right. And they're well trained. I think the soldiers today are probably better trained than we were. I think the electronic warfare is involved in all these different aspects of war that we didn't have available to us. And I think that it probably puts them in a better position than we were in.
Why do you stay with the VFW? Why do you do your work helping these veterans each day? Probably my last question to you. What do you get out of it?
Well, just personal satisfaction, knowing that I could help somebody that's in need. Helping them through the system. I've been involved with the government for 29 years, so I can kind of help them through the system.
Well, we appreciate you lending that assistance to our veterans and appreciate your service to this nation. I'm glad you were a part of this broadcast today, Mr. Neal, and I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. Frank Neal, representing VFW Post 3200, and to all of his fellow soldiers out of the 319th. Thank you for tuning in too. I know you're cheering him on. You'll see him at the reunion, and when we come back, you're going to see how you can help shape future editions of this broadcast. This has been a special one, and you can share in the shaping of our future episodes on the Means Report. Today we pay tribute to America's servicemen and women.